Hi, I'm Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life, and I have a blog of the same name, and I'm my so-called handmade life on Instagram too. I'm Mamatronic on Ravelry and Flickr, if you do that. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving, everybody. We did. We had a good Thanksgiving. It was really quiet. There, was not as many of us together, but it was a very loving get together. And it was nice to be someplace where everyone is heard, loved, wanted, and that was really nice. It was good for my soul to have my children here. So I hope that was the same case for any of you. But it's been a while since I posted one of these because I have had some health things going on. I was sick. You saw I was kind of getting sick last time, and then over that weekend I got really sick. Then I had a migraine and it just lasted and lasted, and I was just useless the whole time. And it kind of leaves me wondering, when those are happening, I would think, is this going to be forever? Because they used to just last a day, and a pill might make it go away. Then maybe 2 pills, maybe it would last 2 days. But then it just goes on, and I decided to, well, I was praying one night because I couldn't sleep. It hurt so bad, kind of like the month before. And I just felt at peace about it. It's weird. I was hurting and I didn't want to hurt, but I wasn't afraid, and I figured it would pass. And I went to a website. I did a search because it's getting clear that it's, a female hormonal thing. And so I did a search and I found the exact type that I have. And then I had something to bring to my doctor. So Catherine, you recommended, maybe in the last episode or the one before, your comment was that I should try magnesium. I did bring that up to my doctor. He wasn't sure. He said there's not a lot of studies to prove, but he said it has helped some people that he has seen. There's so many different types of triggers and migraines, but mine is probably due to estrogen imbalance, and there's not a lot medically that you can do for it as far as medicines, but he had a lot of natural things for me to try, and I'm pretty hopeful about it. And there's some tricks, like catching it in the first 2 days, right before it's supposed to start. If you can kind of track your cycle and figure out about when it's supposed to happen, kind of a lighter weight medication might just kind of nip it right there if you catch it at the beginning, and you won't need 5 days of trouble. But what I found was that this type of migraine is usually a 5-day ordeal, and that's what it's been for me. So it was actually encouraging to know, even if I can't reduce the pain, it's not going to be forever. It's just 5 out of every 25 days, right? That's not so bad. So I did get some magnesium, and it's a type that hits your system quickly, and I know this, you take it all the time. If it's going to prevent a migraine, you take it every day, but it's already helping me sleep more soundly, which was important because you don't sleep well when you have a migraine, and so then you're behind on 5 days of sleep, So anyway, I appreciated that comment. And that's some good news, actually. Turmeric instead of a regular anti-inflammatory. I'm interested to try that. And I don't know. And then I have a new triptan. I can always take that if it's necessary. He said it's slow release, but it's also slow to leave your system. So anyway, that's kind of good news. But that's where I've been for the last couple of weeks. So, despite having the migraine, I finished my test knit for Libby Johnson on time. I don't think I can show it yet, though. I believe Union Fiber has a version on their Instagram. I did put a kind of a blurry version of it soaking on my Instagram, but I didn't want to do like a real spoiler. I mean, my blurry picture isn't even as much a spoiler as Libby put on her Instagram, so I think I'm safe. But if you want to see it, you can hop over there. And I'm excited about it. It fits. I wasn't sure. My gauge kind of got off in doing the mosaic type knitting for the color work, but it still worked out because I was making a slightly oversized version, so it works, and I still have room. It's going to be a nice Christmas sweater, and I can't wait to show you. I guess maybe next time it should be released and I can wear it for you. So I asked you guys how you would feel about a Ravelry group, especially for when we're doing knit-alongs, because you can go back and access that conversation, link up to patterns. You can search for keywords in the discussion to say, yeah, what was that thing, that tip somebody offered about casting on? And you can search cast on and just get all the posts in that thread. It's really handy. All of you that responded were for it. I'm glad, because I am very for it now, especially after some of the things you said. Several of you, like Frauke and Sarah, haven't used Ravelry forums ever before, or not very much. And you're like a little, you know, I don't know, I'm sure I can figure it out. You can totally figure it out. It's not, you know, there's been talk about Ravelry's maybe an interface doesn't look as slick as some things, but one of the reasons is that it has so many uses and functions, and I wouldn't want any of them to be removed. And I really actually think it's very well put together, and it's not really hard to navigate once you start doing it. So I'm excited you're excited to try. And Frauke had mentioned that her English isn't so great, so she's not quite sure about it, but there are so many people that do not speak English, well, some maybe not at all, and certainly in the forums I've been part of, many that don't speak it as a first language. And you know, everybody gets your gist, and we all like links and patterns and things, so it works great. Plus, Frauke, I am the worst about autocorrect, weird things that I say accidentally because of autocorrect, and my finger, you know, I'm scrolling through and stutter my finger, and now I've disliked and disagreed with everything everybody said. So if I can do it, you can do it. Ada had said, you know, I said I was a little nervous about starting a Ravelry group because like this last week, after I recovered from that migraine that I had last week, all this week I've been trying to catch up on everything I just couldn't do. I was too ill. Just, you know, sick at my stomach and head ringing. And I thought, what would I do if I had another responsibility? But it's not like it's a real serious responsibility. I take your comments seriously, but many of you kind of reassured me. It's not a big deal if you're not in there all the time. Ada had said that it shouldn't be a pressure-filled thing, or what's the point? The point is that it's for fun and for our enrichment. So Kathy had also said that we're all busy, and so we have to let grace precede us. I liked that, letting grace precede us. So if I'm not on there as much as I would like to be, then y'all keep that in mind. And Cassandra had said that I wouldn't be shouldering the burden of responding alone, that it's for the group to chat with each other. And that's a really good point, because one of the things I enjoyed about some of these episodes I've put out is listening to the things you say to each other. And maybe earlier in this last year, there were comments about things like our overspending and the lure of Instagram deals on yarn and things, and people were commenting with each other in the YouTube comments, and I loved that. So that would certainly be even more encouraged in a Ravelry discussion thread. Adina had really got me though when she said that I'm not the only one who'll be starting threads. Like, any viewer who's a member of the group could start a thread. And it's not necessarily my job to upkeep what they're talking about. And I really love that idea. Now I have to do it. I'm just interested to see what is on your minds and what you're thinking about making or doing. So, you know, Rosamond said something really sweet about all of us. She said that this is a group, it's a caring, supportive, global knit group. And that's really true. All of you that I've met, and some I don't hear from as much as in the beginning, some I do. Some of you I hear from on Ravelry, others on Instagram. Absolutely, that's the truth. It is a supportive global group, and I'm glad that you want a Ravelry group. So I'm going to be, you know, it's today's a Friday, so in the next 4 or 5 days I'm going to try to get that set up. And like I said, I make no promises. It may not be very slick, but I think it'll be good. And I think that the type of people, the type of viewers you are, you're not really interested in slick that much. You really are interested in the conversation. So another thing that you left comments about was different modifications that you've made. Hang on, let me get a drink. My throat's still all off from being sick. Brooke had commented, YouTube wouldn't let her comment for some reason, but she was able to catch me on Ravelry, and she had said that she modified the Shalom cardigan, which I actually didn't know about, but it's a big deal pattern. Has a lot of FOs, but I hadn't ever seen it. So she modified it by adding sleeves to it. It was sleeveless, and making it button all the way down instead of just closing kind of at the top. And then she did some sizing modifications on it. The Shalom cardigan is by Megan McFarlane. And I'll have links to everything in the description, because this is going to be a link-heavy episode with recommendations for all of you in modifying and designing patterns. So anyway, she has done that. She also, with another sweater, she just added stripes to it, and a faux seam along the side to hide the jog of where the stripes, you know, a new striping color began next to the last color. So those are great ideas. I mean, the stripes thing is easy to do if you've never modified something. So if you're hesitant about joining this cowl, and several of you said you were, I think you're thinking you need to design something that's pattern sales worthy. Not at all. In fact, you know that book I held up with, if I pull it out, I'm going to knock a bunch of books over. They're all still stacked here. And there goes a book I wanted to show you. The Japanese Knitting Stitch Bible. There we go. You know, there's all these samples. You could just make a dishcloth with cotton, cheap cotton yarn, practicing some of these cables. And of course, cotton will react differently than wool. Or you could make blanket squares and just start it up, you know. It's really whatever you want to do. A dishcloth. I mean, one thing, you know, that's being part of the knit along. It's easy, that easy. Or just adding stripes here and there in something. Hang on. I'm sorry, I'm here, I'm scared, but that's how it's going to be. I have to go do Christmas shopping in just a minute, so I've got my helper today, so I need to do it. Let's see who else commented. Oh, another thing that Brooke had said though is that she loves knitting, but she finds it's difficult to find the time to do it, because she has children at home and there's some guilt in making time for herself. And she had mentioned, you know, she likes to play her piano or take some knitting time, and she always feels better for it. You know, you can start to feel a sort of a resentment build if you aren't getting any time to yourself, if your life is all about others. And I know we go through times where that may be true with babies, and when someone's sick or something's not well, that's true. But just day in and day out, moms need time, right, to themselves. And I shared with her that like an early memory that I have. I was such a grouch. When I was like a teenager, I said that Wilford Brimley was my alter ego because I felt so grumpy when I was little. I remember playing in my room. I was probably 3 or 4. I was playing in my room and I heard my mother playing the piano. And she was just going after it. You know, she had like these Reader's Digest show tunes collections. And I remember I could tell she was enjoying herself. And I remember feeling cross about it. Like, she's enjoying herself without me. I didn't like it. But I have another memory of just a couple of years later. I had a little friend over playing, and my mom started to play the piano while we were in my room playing. And my friend and I just stopped and listened, and I remember smiling. And my friend was so impressed, and I said, come on. And I brought her in there, and I asked my mother to, you know, we basically made song requests. Probably like Furlies or something, you know, that all little kids know and like. And she, you know, humored us with it. Oh, and I also think I requested, I can't believe, I have a really good memory of my early childhood. I requested Hard-Hearted Hannah, The Vamp of Savannah. That's a fun show tune. And she played both, you know. And then hymns in between that. So that annoyance I felt that my mom was not revolving around me, it gave way, you know. And I look back, even as a child, I was proud of my mother for her uniqueness and her interests and indulging them. And of course now I'm very proud of that. So I was just like, you know, you go, Brooke. But then I thought about my kids. One of them, I can't remember which one, but like for a while I would only do maybe 30 minutes of time to myself for sure every day. And that's when I got some exercise. So I go walk or run or something. And then if I got more later, great. And I enjoyed a lot of the stuff I did with the kids anyway, but this was my time and I had it every day. And so I would put them in a jogging stroller. Now for a while I had both of them in a double stroller. And I don't remember which one it was, about the age of 2 or 3. They said, all you care about is exercise, you know, exercise. And I remember laughing because they didn't want to stop playing to get in the stroller for 30 minutes, you know. So, even today, if anyone in the family is excited about something, they're kind of geeking out on it, you know, someone else will say, all you care about is knitting and exercise. You know, we'll say the thing and exercise because it's like a joke now, because that wasn't true at all of me, but it's really dramatic and funny. So I don't know, that made me think of that, Brooke. Brooke was also saying, like me, she has some of those placeholder yarn purchases. I talked about that early in the year, last year, this 2018, about how I didn't have time to work on things, so I would just see the yarn on sale on Instagram, and if I had the money, I would just say, yeah, that would be perfect for this project, as though if I buy the yarn, I'm going to magically have the time to work on it, and I didn't. That's how I was, especially when my grandparents were still alive. But I kind of quit doing that. I worked on it, but yeah, this last month I've been under a lot of stress, and I think that's what a lot of it has to do with. I haven't felt well. I've had really bad migraines, probably stress related, you know, that makes them worse. And I found myself, especially like Black Friday stuff, you know, and Christmas stuff on sale, patterns, a lot of good designers stuff is on sale right now. And, you know, 30% off, 38% with Caitlin Hunter. That was pretty cool. I mean, I got some. I got a couple. I'm tempted to do the placeholder purchase thing. And I just had to identify it in myself. But one thing that's helped me is thinking about this Wing It Cow that we're going to do, the Wing It Knit Along. And if you don't know, at the first of the year, we're going to start, everyone involved in this podcast, viewers, people on Instagram, and we're going to have a Ravelry group by next week, hopefully. We're going to just try to wing it to some extent on a knitting project. We have this knowledge. I mean, really, if you can just knit and purl, you can wing it. But I've been knitting for like 17 years. I can certainly make a pattern up, a design all on my own. I may not want to do that completely. I might just modify something, but it's to encourage me to use up my stash, but mostly to use some of the skills I've learned to be creative. Not to always have to be told what to do. And not only that, it's good for problem solving. When you find that there's something you want to knit, but if it just had shorter sleeves or something like that, when you practice modifying it, you can pretty much make anything you want. So what I could do is go through all my Ravelry patterns in my library and see which ones I like this shape. So I'm going to totally change it and make color work, or I'm going to make it longer, or I'm going to knit the size up and make it oversized and, you know, make a V-neck. So that's what the Wing It Cal is going to be, and that'll be a hashtag. So hopefully you'll join us, because we're going to, on our group that's not happened yet, we're going to be posting inspiration and books and links to tutorials, things like that, and how we did our modifications. So yeah, I've got to take it easy on purchasing the patterns and things, yarn that I can't get to right now, so why should I do it? I've been asking myself, could I make something like this on my own? Do I really need a pattern for this? Not to discourage anyone from buying from designers, because I love supporting designers, but I've supported a lot of designers for a long time. It's okay if once in a while I don't, and I just try to figure out something similar on my own. Not to make a pattern to sell in competition, but just for my own enjoyment. And it also helps me to not buy stuff I don't need. So anyway, Knitting Poppy, or Louise, wants to join in the knit along, but she's not sure that she has the headspace right now to make a bunch of modifications or design something herself. She said her modifications so far have been just to change the cast on of her flax to a tubular cast on, or to add short rows to her flax. But that's exactly the modifications we're talking about, Louise, so you could join in with that flax, totally, and I hope that you will. I consider that winging it. In fact, I think that a tubular cast on is just the nicest edge on a sweater, but I've thought of modifying patterns and adding it, but I'm just always dreading looking up the tutorials and which one was the best one, and I kind of like picture tutorials better, but that's hard to do. And she had said she has a library of tutorials on her YouTube. So she's got you can see it in the comments, and you can follow to her YouTube if you want to see her tutorials, because I think that list is open to anyone. But that's also something that we could put on the Ravelry group. Rosamond, Sarah Wilcox, and Sarah Jane all have recommended Strange Brew, that new Tin Can Knits book. I didn't realize that it had design tips and modification tips in it. I just thought it was great patterns, and it was showing the versatility of color work. Plus, you know, they always do all the sizes to fit a family. But if it has that too, that's a really good buy. I'm interested in that book. I would like it. I would like it for Christmas. Hint, hint to my husband who never watches this. Rosamond might actually use it to make something for this cal. Just modify something. Sarah has actually done modifications before. In fact, she did a couple out of the book I showed you last week, Custom Knits. Let me show you the ones she did. This was one that I liked. It was called Pink, I think. I liked it because of the little sleeve. It's kind of got a collegiate looking sweater with the bands of color on the sleeve and the v-neck. I liked the fit of that way back when I got this. I never made it, but then she did ingenue. I'm not sure how she modified that one, but she told me the modification she did for slinky ribs. So here was the original pattern that Wendy Bernard put out for slinky ribs, and then it shows several modifications here. She modified it, Sarah did, by raising the neckline and adding long sleeves. I'm going to show you one of the mods. See, here's long sleeves. That's a really low neckline. I would have to wear something under it, and I don't know if I would want to do a neckline quite so low. I start to feel messy when I have lots of shirts and stuff, straps peeking out. I don't really like it. I feel a little overwhelmed by it, but I would probably want to do the same modification that she did. And then I showed you, I did a very low U-neck type, it's menswear inspired tuxedo vest. I showed y'all that last time. I'll try and wear it next time. I've got to find it. But it does require a shirt underneath for sure. But Custom Knits is a good book, and she had forgotten about the tips in that one, so that reminded her because she has it. Sarah Jane is planning on natural dyeing her own yarn for this project and doing something color work, some kind of pullover. I think she said oversized, I'm not sure. Oversized is what I think I'm going to go for too. Some kind of pullover, vest or sweater. That's what I want to do. I may just end up doing a hat or something. I don't know. We'll see. I may make something monstrous. Who knows? With like one arm that's super long and then the other short. You never know. But it will be fun. Whatever it is, it will be fun. Lori is using Coco Knits. I showed you the sweater workshop by Coco Knits last week. She is actually using that book right now to track increases on a totally different pattern that's not by Julie Weisenberg, but she wants to do one of the patterns in Coco Knits but modify it somehow. So I'm excited to hear how she enjoys it. I'm going to dig into Coco Knits, but not right now. Right now I'm kind of wanting to mess with color work, and so I have some color work dictionaries and things I'd like to look at and focus on for a simple shape for a sweater. Lori also recommended one of Ann Budd's sweater books. It kind of teaches you how to do your own top-down sweater, and I think it's called The Knitter's Handy Guide to Top-Down Sweaters, and it's by Ann Budd, and if I'm not mistaken, it might be on sale right now on Interweave website. You know, I get all these emails about sales and things. It might be on sale with Interweave, because I think it's an Interweave. I think it's one they sell. Anyway, I'd like to look at that book one day. I've heard it's very good. A lot of people have used it to wing it and make their own sweater. So Lori asked a question. She asked what I reach for most often when I grab a knit, and it is, lately it's always oversized pullover or cardigan. Cardigans are really easy. It's very warm where I live, and so right now whatever I wear, I want it to not, if I wear a fitted sweater, I have to wear something underneath that fits. Often it's kind of see-through. It's just not something I would want to wear. It's kind of undershirt-like, and I wouldn't want to wear that out. So typically something loose, and I can wear a t-shirt under it and pull it off when it gets warm in the middle of the day. Cardigans are the same way. I also just like an oversized shape. It tends to go with every single kind of thing I would wear. You know, cropped pants, skinny jeans, leggings, baggy jeans, it all works. I just like oversized clothes. I'm just stuck in 1994 or something. So I thought that was a neat question. I would be interested to hear what everyone else thinks too on that. She said she grabs her Lizzie cardigan the most often. And Lori, I hope you'll comment on this episode and tell us maybe you could link to. Which Lizzie cardigan are you talking about? I've seen two. One is Kim Hargreaves. It's kind of classic cabled cardigan. I wonder if that's the one you mean. Julie said that this would be her first sweater if she joins the Cal and knits a sweater. And for her, that might just be as much winging it as she can do. I think that's totally cool. I think that's winging it. That's trying something new, definitely. And you might find, Julie, it's not so intimidating to make little changes here or there. You're going to get a lot of inspiration from the rest of the group. Adina recommended Sweater Workshop by Jacqueline Fee. I've never seen that one, but she said it uses Elizabeth Zimmerman's percentage method, which is in that book, Knitting Without Tears. And I told you about that one last week. I'm going to link all of these, okay? So Sweater Workshop uses that percentage system and kind of guides you to making your own design. And she's used it on several sweaters. Sometimes she would change do the math to figure out a different gauge because she was using hand spun, and you know, hand spun is kind of varies, or it's often very thick. So she used that book and then did the math and made sweaters. She made one for her husband that he called the Sheep. It was so big and thick, and it was like battle armor. And she said that he loved it, though. I mean, it was funny. It was so massive, but he loved it. And even the front of it had cables, and somehow they kind of veered off to one side. And she doesn't know how that happened, but it was well loved. I love that story, Adina. That's funny. I made a sad little hat once for my son, and he was little, and he loved it. It was cheap yarn, acrylic of some sort, but it was soft. He wore that thing all the time. He wore it, it got a hole in it, and he kept wearing it until he was, you know, old enough to care how he presented himself to the world. So I'm wearing one of my modifications that I told you about a few weeks ago. It is, I call it the Lund or Linden sweater. Hang on. I'm still really congested and I can't hear my voice well. If I sound really hick and shrill, I'm sorry. I'm trying to project, and maybe I'm projecting too much. This is With Ease, I think is the name of this. It's an Alicia Plummer pattern. I think I used her basic stitch count. I know that that was my template for the sweater. I just don't remember if I changed the stitch count up a little bit, possibly to make this color work fit. This is just a traditional Scandinavian color work thing. You can see here. Design. I forget what these stars are called, but the reason I did it, and I'm going to link to it in the notes in the description. If you've ever watched the TV series The Killing, not the third season, it stinks, the first two seasons before Netflix took it. It's based on a, oh, what country? You guys probably know. I can't remember now. Was it Norwegian? It's based on, it's the English version of something from a Scandinavian country. And that version is supposed to be better. I've just never watched it because I don't usually watch TV unless I'm knitting, and I can't always knit well and watch subtitles. So I have, and it's a serious show. It's the kind you wouldn't want to miss a subtitle, not even a sentence. So anyway, Sarah Linden is the main character in the English version, and actually it's an American version, but you know what I mean, in English. It's Sarah Lund, though, in the original series. Anyway, Sarah Lund wears this, something that looks almost just like this, but it's like a white sweater with black Fair Isle stars across it, or snowflakes. And I saw that and I was inspired. And then I saw a very oversized version of that on like a model in something. I don't even know what it was, on Pinterest or online somewhere, and I was like, ah, that's the sweater I want to make. So I took the With Ease pattern and I used the stitch count. I checked I think somebody, I'll have links to all this, someone had this Fair Isle design, like the basic motif. I might have had to pay for it, or it might have been free on Ravelry. It wasn't expensive. And so when I got that, I plugged in the numbers and I got something, you know, that approximated my size. I wanted this to be a little more oversized than it is. It's bulky. I was just growing at that point. That's when I started to gain a little weight. So it still has plenty of room. You can see there's plenty of room here, but it's not like super long. It's not the big oversized sweater I wanted. Very comfortable though, super warm. And this, I also did a variegated or semi-solid Sweet Georgia colorway here that I enjoy. I like that. I like the varying color. You can see how it goes from, you know, kind of a purple to a burgundy to a red, a magenta anyway. That was all I did. It took a little bit of math maybe, but it wasn't bad at all. And I just decided how I wanted to space them, how long I wanted it to be. And because I had the guiding pattern by Amy Plummer, I was in good shape. So that's one of my big modifications that I've done. And The Killing is a great show, the American version. So many good sweaters. That blog post that I'm going to link, this is where I get a lot of my inspiration for something I want to make. Often it's from older shows, retro stuff, but The Killing, full of good sweaters. And I have a list of like sweaters Sarah Linden wears and the pattern on Ravelry it makes me think of. It's kind of a fun post. If you're into that, if you watch shows and say, oh my gosh, I could make that, that's what I do. Speaking of my blog, I have some real blog woes here lately. If you've been trying to comment on it and it won't let you, I'm sorry. I don't know what is going on. Some people get through, others don't. I used a different plugin for comments. I used Discuss because years ago the spam was so bad on the regular blog comments, but Discuss isn't being updated well. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I even would like to switch platforms, but when you migrate things from one platform to another, you lose comments, you lose posts and things. I hate to lose anything. The comments mean something to me. A lot of them were really good, really important to me. And of course, a lot of my earlier blogging was stuff with my family when they would let me take photos of them. Family vacations and things that, I don't know, they're scrapbook-like. So I hate to mess with it, but I think I'm going to have to. And that's one of those things, it's like in order to do this creative pursuit, you have to spend 1,000,000 hours in front of a computer or on the phone with somebody. And I hate that. So we'll see how it works. It's one of the things that would take me away from a Ravelry group for sure. But if you do want to comment on my blog and you can't, you can always reach me on Instagram. You can DM me. You can comment if I have the same post on Instagram that I do on my blog. I often use the same photos, post them at the same time. You can comment on Instagram or find me here on YouTube or Ravelry. That's a lot of trouble for you though, but I appreciate those of you who have. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to try to find a problem. It may just be well after the first of the year before I get that solved. So your comments are important to me, you can tell. They are too. I think your comments are important to other people watching the podcast too, because you encourage one another and inform each other. Some of you have made some really good recommendations for websites, TED Talks, books. Julie had said she was very encouraged by all the comments on grief in the last few episodes. She's going through a phase where her mother's dementia is ramped up. You can see it in the comments. And when your parent has dementia, you just really don't have anyone to run to for a shoulder to cry on or support or advice. And so you're grieving. You're grieving already, you know. Now, how far the dementia progresses, it could vary from person to person. And when my grandfather was diagnosed with it, we kind of just, we knew we'd heard some of the worst cases. He had it for several years, and he was elderly when he got it. I mean, he was basically maybe late 80s when he was diagnosed, maybe. So by the time he passed away, he still knew who I was. He knew who my grandmother was. I'm not sure he could confidently say my children's names, but he knew who they were. And he lit up when they visited him. It just like brought him back to himself. You know, if he was frustrated or worried or where am I, when he was in the hospital once, they walked in the room and he started smiling. He started looking around anew. Like, how can I make this more hospitable? Like, he had guests and he was going to be, you know, a good host. So that memory was there of who his family was and the way they made him feel. It was really sweet. So he did lose, though, his ability to be there as a support, but yet his presence was always comforting to me. A lot of people with dementia become very irritable and frustrated and paranoid. He was never like that with me. He was like that with my grandmother, though, and it was hard for her. She also had health problems of her own and was not sleeping well because he wasn't sleeping well. So sleep deprivation really took a toll on her over the years, and her personality began to change. It was not in her nature to complain or to be cross, but she faced that toward the end of her life. And so between the two of them, there was no one there that I could, some days I couldn't, if I had troubles, I couldn't run to them with the troubles because they had too many of their own. And they were leaning on me for a lot of those. So I understand how you feel, Julie. I do. You know that phrase, it sounds kind of cliche, be the thing you want to see in others. I didn't know that phrase when I was doing it, but somewhere I read or heard in dealing with relationships that if a person isn't giving you what you want or you think you need, the kind of love you want, maybe, they said that if you just go ahead and give it to them, give it to other people, and just seeing it given to someone, even if you're not the recipient of it, has a healing, healthy effect to your body, and to your soul, because you need to see this kind of loving relationship. It's best if you can receive it too, but even if you can't, the giving in itself is something. I don't know where I heard that years ago, but I thought about that a lot when I would go to visit them and I would feel already tapped out, you know, because I had the headache thing and the not sleeping and the hormone imbalance, and then they had troubles. They were frustrated or worried or insecure about where they were, or my grandfather might be. My grandmother would be just wanting a minute to herself, and maybe she was complaining or cranky about something. And I would think, well, how would I want to be treated right now? And I knew what I wanted so desperately. And there wasn't a source for it at that time in my life. So I would try to just be that. And it didn't make me not want it anymore. I still wanted somebody to take some of my burdens. I wanted to cry on someone's shoulder. But it did have a therapeutic effect. It was better than nothing to give that. I'm not trying to give you advice here, Julie. It just made me think about it. That time was hard, and I wasn't their they didn't live with me. I wasn't their sole caregiver. I handled a lot of things for them. They lived in an assisted living center, but it wasn't like true medical assisted living. But, you know, I didn't housekeep for them. I didn't do things like that. They didn't need to go to the store, but they had lots of doctor's appointments, and I did go to the store for them. It was just a hard time. So I feel for you where you are and the way that you're grieving now. And I just hope that you get the comfort and the advice, the shoulder to lean on that you need and other people, and that being it for them will be good for you right now, that it will be enough, and that you'll have this. You're going to get through this. You're going to be able to do it. Rosamond had said, as far as being therapeutic ways to deal with grief, that knitting works for her, of course. But she said that it's not just, like for me, being creative is therapeutic, but there are times where I said that zoning out and just knitting would allow my brain to think about things. She said without even consciously trying to work on a worry, the knitting would take care of it. It would be resolved. She would finish and feel calmer and less burdened. Lori had said that not to rush grief, not to rush it, that sweet memories eventually replace the ones we love. I really wasn't sure about that after my grandmother died. It was just kind of, it was like my father's death was sudden. It was sudden. And there have been so much sad stuff before that, that every time I thought about her, I just felt like my stomach hurt. And I couldn't imagine how I wouldn't hurt thinking about her. But, you know, recently after my father passed away, I had a memory of something, and I remembered going to my grandmother's, and I would just like, I didn't sleep well, I had insomnia. Things weren't always so great at my house. There was a lot of dysfunction when I was a teenager, and after my mom passed away, and I would go to my grandparents, and I would just collapse on their couch and sleep for, I don't know how long, an hour or two, when I should have been visiting with them, and I meant to visit with them, but I just felt so at peace at their home, and I would sleep, and she would just come by and cover me up with one of her little crocheted afghans, and they would be kind of quiet. My grandfather might be watching a ball game, but he wouldn't yell or fuss at the TV, and they just understood. And when I thought of that, oh, I felt so much sweetness flood me. And I realized that I am starting to remember older times before she hurt, before she was worried. And it was a real blessing to, I could see how sweet memories, and the same will happen, you know, with my dad. I have good memories. It's not that I don't have them, it's just that right now I have a lot of heartache at the same time. So I appreciated your saying that, Lori, and I have found that to be true with other relatives that passed away longer time back, you know. So, like Rosamond said, this is a very supportive group here. And then WT 3001, I don't know your real name, lost several family members in a short amount of time when she was young, in her 20s. And she had said it took a long time of just she kind of vacated, like emotionally she just wasn't there. She was just going through the motions of life, but the real her was somewhere lost in all of this, unable to face, this has really happened, I can't believe this has happened, and I don't know what I would do if I were that age. Losing so much of my support at once. I did comment to her that I did lose my mother right before I became a teenager, and there was some hard times in our family after that. It was a real crisis time, and I did feel like I was floating and alone. But I did have other people as support, just not necessarily in the home with me, but I had them. And she said that we all have a different path to take to get back to ourselves, and I think that's true. And the timing is different for everyone, and who we get back to is different. When I finally realized that I had never grieved my mom, I was a young adult. I was basically married or about there. And I I guess when my mom passed away, I was maybe 13. I just didn't even know I had a right to grieve. Everything was always about somebody else or something else, and I'm just supposed to be here, an accessory. I'm to help. I'm here to help, you know, which is ridiculous for a 13-year-old to think, but that's how I was. And I was maybe 19, 18 when I realized you're not just an accessory. You have a right to grieve. I lost something important. Though I believe I'll see her again, I lost her here on this earth, and it was hard. So when I came back to myself, it was like I was finally myself. I mean, that happened when I was a kid. I was still forming, and I had these nutty notions of my value. So when I kind of came back to myself in my 20s, I really was like a different person. I hope that that time is past for you, that you're not still suffering from that so much, and that you have found yourself and the support you need too. Thank you for your comment. So I get a lot out of what you all have to say. A Ravelry group could be a place where we have conversations about things like, I could ask the question about grief on the podcast and you could answer in YouTube, but you could answer in Ravelry, and speak to each other more easily. So look for that, and when it's the next episode, it'll be up when I talk to you about it. You can also post inspiration pictures. Sarah Jane was saying she would like to do that. And I showed you some of my inspiration last time. I may just knit those patterns as is, but like one of them, like the petite knit plaid thing, that's not exactly what I wanted. So it was my inspiration though. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, I want to do plaid, but maybe something a little different. Though I love that pattern. You could also link up your tutorials that you use, how you're doing your modifications, and the books that I've mentioned here, and then your ideas. It would be a great place to link them. Plus, anything you've done in the past to modify something, put a picture in. And once that is up and running, if you have questions about how to use it, you can leave those questions there. Somebody will help you. I will help you if somebody doesn't get to it sooner. Because I'm really excited about Ravelry's forums. It is the best community place I've ever been online. So please sign up for the group when it's out. So all this talk about knitting, I haven't shown you a few other things I'm working on. I can't show you my test knit. I can show you that on my floozy I have divided the body from the sleeves. And that's all. See my sleeve hole? Here we go. Yeah, this is like really impossible for you to see much of anything, and it doesn't look like it's grown, but it has. I added, here's a modification. Oops. Oh, please don't lose my, here we go. I added a few rows after the color work. I just about 4 extra rows because I'm just a little worried. It blocked out a lot. This is a silk cashmere wool blend, and Libby had said that it kind of grows when you block it, and mine did. My sample, my little swatch, but a swatch is small, and even if you yank on it or put clothespins on it to weigh it down as it dries, I'm not confident. So I just added a tiny bit, like a ½ an inch more, and you can see my color work. It's a little puckered. It always is with this. Hopefully this will be blocking out smoothly. I did get my test knit color work to block out smoothly. So anyway, I'm really excited about wearing this, so excited. The reason it's moving so slow is that I was struggling. I had it on some size, I think it was 2 or 1, size 1 carbons, and there's just enough metal on the carbons, like at the tip, it was slipping off. Every stitch I really had to wrench and work. It took twice as long. I've never worked with this kind of blend before, and so slippery needles combined with slippery yarn, and this is very slippery yarn, which is what makes it so fine. I mean, it's going to make it so nice to wear. I wouldn't choose anything else, but I have to take breaks from working on it because I don't have, I guess, the right form for working with slippery yarn, and it kind of hurts my my wrist. So I would go from that to something different, and I did put it on wooden needles. They're zeros, but I'm just trying to kind of think loose as I knit. It's not quite the right size, but I don't have anything else free at the moment. So I'm enjoying it though, and now that it's split and those sleeve stitches are off, it is not such a gigantic amount of stitches, so it's going to be going a little faster. And I think this will be smooth knitting from here on out. It's just about getting the length right. I'm excited about it. So I've been also, this is also fingering weight, so it's not really a break from the fingering, but it's what I do when I'm traveling or out to eat or something. This is my Michelle colorway sock. This is the Michelle colorway from Lovebird Lane Yarns. Julianne dyed it, and I think it's a very me, very me. And then I added just some little waist yarn for heels and toes. I love it. I love this. My other sock is close. I'm past the heel. I put in my waist yarn, and I worked on it. See, I'm right here, past the heel. I worked on it in Creed 2. We did that on Thanksgiving evening. My husband, my son, and his girlfriend, we went to see Creed 2, and I worked on it during the movie, but I was all loose and sloppy. I ended up pulling everything I did in the movie out and redoing it. I guess I was into all that fighting. I don't know. It's kind of dorky, but I do like fighting shows. So the other project that's worsted weight, so it's a little easier on my, well, actually it's sport weight, but it's very woolly, and is my Guthrie. I started the Guthrie. Now, I showed you a while back some brown yarn that I was going to use with the Spin Cycle. This is Spin Cycle Mississippi Marsala. It looks really pretty in the skein. It does here too, but you just can't see all the colors wound in a ball. I was going to use brown, but then Patty on Instagram, and I'm going to link her wonderful project. I talk about it on my blog though. I'm trying to do Vlogmas and blog every day of December, but I've already missed 2 days, and I'm not going to probably get it posted today. I've got stuff written, I just haven't gotten to upload pictures and post it. So anyway, you just can't even really see what I've done here. It's also, the Mississippi Marsala is on a lighter color. So this is really not very visible, but I will show you my swatch. And it's nice. Isn't that pretty? The Dyed in the Wool by Spin Cycle seemed almost like fingering weight. It seemed really thin compared to the white yarn that I got. I don't even know if I said this. My husband came home and now I'm all flustered because I need to hurry. Patty's beautiful sample was knit white main color, and she used Spin Cycle, and she actually had Mississippi Marsala, I think was her color. And that's what I had, and I thought, oh, that looks awesome with white. So I decided not to use brown, and I had the brown in my stash. I went ahead and bought some Cascade 220 Sport to go with this Mississippi Marsala. And it was on sale at Craftsy. It was like $15 so to get a sweater's worth, so I'm doing it. I couldn't resist. It was just so nice. But when I knit it up, this felt a lot thicker. It feels like sport weight. This didn't look as thick. There just was a noticeable difference. But as soon as I blocked this, it bloomed, and they're the same. I would say they look the same. This had, it almost seemed kind of gappy and a little imperfect, but the minute it was blocked, it was fine. You can see a little bit of the color gradient here. So I'm excited to have a little bit less slippery yarn to be working with. However, this takes a lot of focus because it's a colorwork chart I'm working from. So it's not for all the time, whereas the floozy, I can watch TV and do that. So that's pretty much what I've been working on here. So, you know, all this talk about designing our own things or modifying something, I've looked up some places where you could find, if you wanted to kind of sketch out what you would like it to look like. You know how designers have their fashion template, you know, fashion woman's body or man's body, and they do their really cool sketches. For instance, like, let me find one here. We'll do just little sketches of the pattern. You know, like, I can't show you. I can't show you without giving it away. Oh well. Screw it. I was just curious if, you know, there was a website that had free templates that you could use to, you know, just the figure of a person, and then you could go over it and kind of draw out the design you would like. If you're going to go so far as to totally make up the shape, the style of your whatever, shawl, or really that's more for sweaters or skirts, the fashion template. So anyway, I found a blog post by A Beautiful Mess where she talks about doing that and how she did them, drew out designs for like a year secretly. No one knew before she even started showing them to people. And she had some recommendations, a book called Figure Drawing for Fashion Design by E. Drudy, and the Fashion Sketch Pad, which is like, I guess, a sketch pad. But you know, if you're drawing out designs, like I think of things all the time, and I forget because my memory's horrible right now. So if you have something like a little, oh look, okay, I'm going to show you my sad little things that I drew to remember what I wanted to make. And I literally just grabbed this moleskin, like it's not even moleskin, I don't know, well it might actually be, little sketch pad I had, and really quick before I forgot. And so like I have these little, these are, I'm not trying to be super artistic here at all. These were just the shapes and the things I was thinking of doing with certain shapes. Mainly they were for shapes, and to remind myself I wanted to do drop shoulder sleeves and high-low and then oversized vest. So anyway, totally, yeah, dumb. Not even trying to be artistic here, okay? I was just trying to remind myself because my memory's so bad. I thought, oh, I got to write down the things I was thinking of doing before I forget. Plus, all of you are coming up with great ideas and book suggestions, and the more I look in them, the more I think, no, I could do this, I could do that. So I wanted to keep track of some of the things I thought of. And so, you know, just a little sketch pad, you know, something like that. But I'm going to have some links to places where there's free templates if you do want to draw out your sweater idea, if you're doing a sweater or whatever your idea is. I think there's like Shutterstock has fashion templates, Freebie Island has fashion design templates, and Patternzilla New York City, NYC. So the links will be in the description. Then there's also a website called Design-A-Knit, and that site will convert any image into a colorwork chart, like a, what do you call it, a graph paper type chart. So if you had a picture, and this is something I really would like to do, like my Oh My Bear, that's sweater with the bear's face. I'd really like to do one with one of my dogs, or maybe one for each of my dogs. You could take a picture of your dog and convert it to a chart. There's other sites that do it, but I think Design-A-Knit is one. They also have lots of like stitch patterns ready to go that you can just insert into whatever basic overall design you have. As far as things like using Excel, don't know how to do it. I'd love to learn how. Maybe one of my kids will show me. So all of this talk, this is very designery sounding, which, you know, I have no pretensions about. Hang on. But I realized I have 2 of these. That's those book purchases. I need to watch it. So, The Beginner's Guide to Writing Knitting Patterns by Kate Atherley. And it says, learn to write patterns others can knit. Not that you have designs on being a designer, and not that I do either, though who wouldn't want to? For fun. That would be a prize as a giveaway prize for the knit along. So please join the Ravelry group when I get it going, and I'll let you know when that is. And I'm doing Vlogmas, so I'm going to be behind a few days, but I'll be posting them. And Lori had said she wondered what knitwear item I grab the most, what I gravitate toward the most, and I'd said cardigans or oversized. Cardigans or pullovers, always usually oversized. So, and honestly hats, because I'm out walking and running a lot, and like I don't want to wear my nice knits to do that because I'll get all sweaty, but the hat I can do. And I have some that I use just for running, so they're not, you know, it's like Lion brand yarn. It's washable. What is your knit that you grab first thing? What is it you tend to wear the most, and why? Please leave that in the comments. And then also any more book recommendations or things like getting a, you know, fashion sketch template online, things like that that might help someone who wanted to kind of flesh out an idea in their mind. Please leave those links here on YouTube, or once I get the Ravelry group up, it'll be the week of the 10th of December. Leave them there. Any tutorial links, all of that, please pop in and join that group so we can hear from you. And I appreciate all of your comments, and I'll see you then.